If you don't mind, outside my time, uh, good evening, everyone. My name is Hussein Kabuguza. I'm from Kawempe Muslim Secondary School, and I'm going to be the Prime Minister within this debate. Before I start, I request to make a few shout outs. And the first shout out is to our school, Kawempe Muslim, for the support. We love you so much. Thank you for being there for us. The second shout out is to our patron, Madame Ziria. Thank you for the support. You've always backed us. We love you. The third is to our coach, Felix Olindi. We love you so much. Thank you for the training. The next is to my teammates, Janat, Fahad. It's hard to keep up with you guys because you're so good. Then all the participants here, thank you for coming. Thank you for making East Africa proud. I know we are the change that East Africa needs. So my speech begins in 3, 2, 1, go. For this debate to happen, there are 4 concessions we must take in. The first is that this is something that is possible. I mean, we have seen the EALA person various policies, and we've seen East African countries abide at the end of the day. The second concession is that either way within status quo, either way within both worlds, people do still go out, right? The reasons why this is true is because within African countries, there is very little capacity to create employment for every individual. But then the third thing is that we don't export everyone within our side of the house. I don't think we are that sort of like naive, right? You most likely export the excess labor that exists within the country at the end of the day. But then the fourth, notice the problem is not that we have zero jobs within East African countries. The problem is that we don't have enough jobs to cater for the booming populations at the end of the day. Still, we need to understand what the characterization of a booming population looks like. 3 things. The first is that within most cases, booming populations do not get sufficient education. That essentially means within their cooperative, you export individuals that are probably going to do jobs like becoming maids, right? The second is that it is very hard to get jobs when you have a booming population within East African countries. Obviously, because of the numbers, or even because East African countries don't have that sufficient infrastructure within most cases. But then the third mostly is that there's a very high population growth rate when we look at things concerning booming populations at the end of the day. The impact of that frame is that within most cases, government is overwhelmed in terms of providing employment. It's not true that government does not try to provide employment, but there's an overwhelming burden onto the government at the end of the day. Notice within any sort of like debate, propositions have the fiat to determine what the policies look like. There are 4 key things onto how these policies that necessarily promote labor migration look like. The first, a policy to necessarily improve the quality of education within the East African countries. The reason as to why this is important is that you then don't export people that are probably going to do jobs like maids, but you then improve the quality of education so that individuals can necessarily meet global standards. That means when you get an excess of doctors, people can necessarily go and be doctors within outside countries at the end of the day. The second is in terms of like labor protection policies. That is to say, people do not go through black markets just like within their side of the house. Government then takes on an incentive to make sure that wherever these people go, they are catered for, they are protected, they don't face things like gross violation of human rights. The third is that there's that level of like taxation onto this labor. When these people go to work, you most likely tax the amount of like, you most likely tax them so that you can necessarily get some returns to invest within the country itself. The fourth is that these individuals work on contracts. That is to say, when they necessarily accumulate a certain amount of income that they can use to invest within the country, we require them to come back. That is to say, we then don't have things like brain drain at the end of the day. Before I go into my arguments, which are going to be 3, the first, onto how then this reduces dependency on government. The second, onto how this promotes investment within East African countries. The third, onto how then this builds long-term capacity. I think I need to do some preemptives. The first, these guys are going to argue for things like brain drain. I think for you to argue for things like brain drain, you have to prove that these people can be utilized within these East African countries. I don't think it's true. Within most cases, these people do not have jobs. They don't have where to be utilized. What happens within our side of the house, you most likely take them to a country where they are going to be utilized. Why that then essentially becomes good is that A, there's a return on investment because you tax them, but then secondly, you reduce the extent to which individuals are idle within society. You reduce things like high crime rate. We think our world is comparatively better. The second, these guys are going to say that within these countries, these people are in most cases tortured. Notice within our policy, we do make a follow-up on these individuals. We make sure we protect them, so you can't argue for these individuals are going to be tortured when they go out. The fourth they're going to say that there's that level of like profit repatriation. When they go to these countries, they pay them peanuts. We notice within our policy, there's something like a contract, right? We have terms and agreements we agree to. We make sure that these people are not paid peanuts. We make sure that these people are paid enough